I'm going to show you today how I pull up my walls, and I'm actually going to break this into a two-part video because I think it does kind of require two steps the way I do it. I haven't seen anybody else do it this way. I wasn't taught this way. It was something that just occurred over 30 years of working with clay. It sort of evolved. And I call it recentering. I've never heard anybody else say that, and like I said, I've never seen anybody else do this technique, but it is the important first step of my first pull. So normally when I'm pulling up clay, I get it up in about 2 pulls depending on the size of the piece, sometimes a 3rd pull just to see if there's anything left at the bottom. And the reason I can do that is 1, 30 years of practice, and 2, the way I have developed my throwing technique. So that is what I'm going to share with you today, is the first step of the process, which is the part I call recentering. You're going to need a sponge for this step of the process. The idea is that once the walls are opened and you have that nice little donut with the pad of clay at the bottom, before you start pulling up your walls is to recenter them. Because I always find that they get thrown off just a little bit. Sometimes it's more obvious and sometimes it's not. But if we take the time to do this step, it really starts us off on the right foot when we go to pull up our walls. In fact, if I were to not do this step, I think I would have my pieces going off center quite a bit. So how do you do it? So I'm going to take this rock that my son had painted a really cute little picture on, and I'm going to pretend that this is the wall of your piece. So what I do is I take my sponge and I wrap it around the entire surface as far as I can go. So this is going to want to be pulled out of your hand with the wheel spinning. You want to make sure your thumb is on the underside and you have a really good grip on it, and wrapping it around however you can. I actually tend to curl my 3 fingers under into a bit of a fist because I feel like I can apply stronger pressure with this method. So there's the crazy hand position. Good luck trying to copy it. You're gonna have to find out what works best for you. But that's the move that I use. So I do that, and then my other hand squeezes the wall wherever that sponge doesn't reach. So the idea is an entire all over pressure on your wall. And one thing you're going to want to keep in mind is the inside fingers are going to need to be raised a little bit higher than the outside thumb, because you want your outside thumb dragging along the bottom, and the inside fingers, if they did the same, are going to dig a nice deep groove right into the base of your piece. So the thumb is a little bit lower on the inside, the fingers are a little bit higher, and you're applying an all over pressure. So the pressure looks sort of like this. It is not like this, like a claw, because then you're going to dig a thin spot into your wall. So keep the pressure as even as you can. The piece should not come up or down. The walls are not coming up at this point. This is just to recenter them. And the sponge is wrapped around the top. So you are reaching every little spot on that wall before you bring it up. And what I find with doing this technique is it can take a little bit of time. So give it lots of rotations. Again, I say this quite a bit, but give the clay a chance to respond to you. The clay needs time to respond to what you're trying to tell it to do. If you can figure out this technique, and it will take practice like everything else on the wheel, then that's the starting point for pulling up your walls. So once you have your piece recentered and all feels well, you can start changing the pressure. That is the only thing that I change in my first pull, and this is the pull that I get up probably 90% of my clay with. So I keep my hands in the exact same position with the sponge wrapped around the top of the wall. I still apply a little tiny bit of pressure just to compress the wall as it's coming up, but the thing that changes is instead of my fingers being flat against the walls for an all over compression, I start digging my thumb underneath at the bottom. And what I'm doing here is creating a thin spot. So I am creating a thin spot. I can't squeeze this rock to create a thin spot, but pretend I'm able to squeeze in here underneath, and I'm creating a thin spot between my thumb and my fingers. And then I keep completely steady with like a little vice grip. It's like I have to tense all the muscles in my hand like this, and I start lifting that slowly up. And that's how I'm able to stretch up so much clay. I have nice controlled walls to start with. I have gentle pressure keeping those walls centered as I'm doing that first pull, and I'm very intentional about where I'm digging. So a lot of the time when people are beginning to throw, they leave a lot of clay at the bottom. The only way to get around that is to really spend your time at the very bottom digging underneath your piece. You're like a little excavator digging a little tunnel underneath your piece, but you don't want to come all the way through the other side. You want to leave just enough of a wall that you have something to stretch up. So start there, keep practicing that, and then watch the next video, which I will link at the end of this one, and you'll see the second step to my throwing process. So that's it for the pottery demo part of this video. I'm also going to share with you today some shower tiles that I made for our shower in our house. We have built our entire homestead out of straw bales, and I have created most of the things in it, from the furniture to anything made out of clay, and also a lot of things that I sew. So today I am wearing a new shirt that I just finished. This is a top by French Navy, and I just finished it, so I'm getting used to it. I think I really like this pattern. It is a crop top, so you'll want to wear it with high-waisted jeans if you sew. And it's a linen cotton blend from Merchant and Mills fabric, which I buy at simplififabric.com. It's a Canadian company that supplies Merchant and Mills fabrics. I'm going to move us into the shower now so that I can show you those tiles and talk a little bit about them. These tiles are the first shower tiles that I ever made, and they are made of cone 6 clay. There's 2 different types of clay, and there's actually only 3 different types of glaze on here. Because the clay bodies are 2 different colors, the glaze reacts differently, and it gives it an appearance of more colors. And I don't remember the exact colors I use. I know that one of them was clear. One of the glazes was a clear glaze, and when you put a clear glaze on top of another glaze, sometimes it can drastically change it. I think I might have also had some sort of textured chowder glaze, and then a glaze like this one that went this color on the white clay and this color on the darker clay. So yeah, I can't remember. It's been about 15 years since I made these tiles. They were very simple. I can't remember the size, but they're maybe 3 inches when they started, 3 inches square tiles. They're really simple. You just roll out a slab, cut out 3-inch squares or whatever size you want, wipe the edges down once they're leather hard, and fire them. For going around places like the, what is this called? This thing, whatever this thing is called, the thing that turns the shower on and off, the handle. There are specialty tiles that I cut, and if you haven't seen my other videos where I talk about the other tiles I've made, I put it together like a puzzle. So those tiles are much easier to cut when the clay is wet. That's the advantage of making your own tiles, or one of the advantages is that you can cut your tiles when the clay is wet, which is so much easier. In fact, I find with the cone 6 tiles, they really don't cut well at all once they're fired. So highly recommend, if you're doing any kind of cutting and making little pieces that fit into corners or around things, cut it when it's wet. For glazing the tiles, I ended up painting the glaze on, so it sort of has a bit of a brushed look on some of the tiles, and then I put each tile, once it had its base coat of glaze, directly on the wheel, sort of centered it, and then took a little bulb that I used to sort of suck up glaze. You can buy slip trailers that'll do this job. Sometimes those things that they sell to suck the snot out of babies' noses at the drugstore will do the same thing. But anyway, you put it under, it's like a big turkey or a little turkey baster kind of thing. You put it under the glaze, you suck up the glaze, and then it allows you to pour the glaze back onto your piece with a brush, helping to guide it to create a perfect circle. So that's done on the wheel. At some point I might be able to demonstrate that if it's something that I do. And you can also apply glaze to larger pieces on the wheel in that way. So if it's something that doesn't fit in your glaze bucket and you don't really want that really brushed look, you can apply glaze on the wheel. Again, I'll show you in some demo, but until then you can experiment. And yeah, so that ended up giving it all these different looks, and sometimes the glaze was a little bit thicker or thinner in that circle, and that would give it an even smaller circle inside the bigger circle. So only 3 glazes were used, 2 colors of clay, and cone 6. It's amazing what you can do with such a small variety. We think that we need to own like 20 million different glazes. We don't. We can do a lot with a few if they're glazes that react really well to each other and to the glaze underneath it. I'm going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.